Shri Vrindavan Dham ki jai, Shri Maya Purnabadi Dham ki jai, Ganga Maya Jamuna Maya ki jai, Shrimati Tulsi Devi ki jai, Shrimati Bhakti Devi ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki jai, Samveda Bhaktavinda ki jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Okay. Reading from Srimad Bhagavat Gita, chapter 15, entitled Karma Yoga, Action in Krishna Consciousness, text number 15. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Nadate kasya chit papam. Nadate kasya chit papam. Na chaiva sukritam vibhu. Na chaiva sukritam vibhu. Agyanen avritam jnanam. Agyanen avritam jnanam. Tena muyanti jantavaha. Tena muyanti jantavaha. Nadate kasya chit papam. Na chaiva sukritam vibhu. Agyanen avritam jnanam. Tena muyanti jantavaha. Nadate kasya chit papam. Na chaiva sukritam vibhu. Agyananendri vritam jnanam. Tena muyanti jantavaha. Na, never. Adate, accepts. Kasyachit, anyone's. Papam, sins. Na, nor. Cha, also. Eva, certainly. Sukritam, pious activities. Vibhu, the Supreme Lord. Agyanena, by ignorance. Avritam, covered. Jnanam, knowledge. Tena, by that. Muyanti, are bewildered. Jantavaha, the living entities. Nor does the Supreme Lord assume anyone's sinful or pious activities. Embodied beings, however, are bewildered because of the ignorance which covers their real knowledge. Purport. The Sanskrit word vibhu means the Supreme Lord, who's full of unlimited knowledge, riches, strength, fame, beauty, and renunciation. He's always satisfied in himself, undisturbed by sinful or pious activities. He does not create a particular situation for any living entity, but the living entity, bewildered by ignorance, desires to be put into certain conditions of life, and therefore his chain of action and reaction begins. A living entity is, by superior nature, full of knowledge. Nevertheless, he's prone to be influenced by ignorance due to his limited power. The Lord is omnipotent, but the living entity is not. The Lord is vibhu, or omniscient, but the living entity is anu, or atomic. Because he is a living soul, he has the capacity to desire by his free will. Such desire is fulfilled only by the omnipotent Lord. And so when the living entity is bewildered by his desires, the Lord allows him to fulfill those desires. But the Lord is never responsible for the actions and reactions of the particular situation which may be desired. Being in a bewildered condition, therefore, the embodied and soul identifies himself with the circumstantial material body and becomes subjected to the temporary misery and happiness of life. The Lord is the constant companion of the living entity as Paramatma, or the Supersoul, and therefore he can understand the desires of the individual soul. As one can smell the flavor of a flower by being near it. Desire is a subtle form of conditioning for the living entity. The Lord fulfills his desire as he deserves. Man proposes and God disposes. The conditioned soul is not, therefore, omnipotent in fulfilling his desires. The Lord, however, can fulfill all the desires, and the Lord, being neutral to everyone, does not interfere with the desires of the minute, independent living entities. However, when one desires Krishna, the Lord takes special care and encourages one to desire in such a way that one can attain to him and be eternally happy. The Vedic hymns therefore declare, Esha yu yeva sadhu karma karayati tong yang ebheyo lobhedya nimishite esha na evasadhu karma karatyati yam adho minishite. The Lord engages the living entity in pious activities so that he may be elevated. The Lord engages him in impious activities so that he may go to hell. The Koshakti Upanishad 3:8. Agya jantur amisho yam atmana saka dukaya ishvara prerato gachit swargam vishvabdham evacha. The living entity is completely dependent in his desires and happiness. By the will of the Supreme Lord, he can go to heaven or hell as a cloud is driven by the air. Therefore, the embodied soul, by his immemorial desire to avoid Krishna consciousness, causes his own bewilderment. Consequently, although he is constitutionally eternal, blissful, and cognizant, due to the littleness of his existence, he forgets his constitutional position of service to the Lord and is thus entrapped by nescience. And under the spell of ignorance, the living entity claims that the Lord is responsible for his conditional existence. The Vedanta Sutras 2.134 also confirm this. Vaishamya nirgyanya na supekshitaha tata ho darshanaya. The Lord neither hates nor likes anyone, though he appears to. Om Ajnana Timirandasya Gyananjana Salakaya Chakshurunmaditam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangum Langayate Ganim Yat Kripa Taraham Bande Shri Gurun Dinataranam Paramananda Madhavam Shri Chaitanyeshwaram. So in the verse 14, the Lord says to Arjuna that the soul is in the body of the city, and he doesn't create activities, nor does he induce people to act, nor does he create the fruits of action. All this is enacted by the modes of material nature. So, someone may think, okay, I'm not doing anything. The Lord did it, right? And the Lord's responsible. But Krishna clarifies, right, that he's not responsible for anybody's situation. He's not responsible for people's pious acts, nor their sinful acts. And so what causes them to engage in these sinful acts or pious acts? Why do people do them? And Krishna clarifies that also. Embodied beings, however, are bewildered. Ajnanam. And because of ignorance, which covers their real knowledge. The living entity actually is in full knowledge, but he becomes covered over by ignorance. And that ignorance manifests itself that the living entity thinks that he's the material body. So the man is thinking that he's a man, when the dog is thinking he's a dog, and cat is thinking he's a cat, right? That's because of ignorance, avidya, ajnana. And they're covered over by this ajnana. The living entity actually is Satchit Ananda, full of knowledge, full of bliss, and is eternal. It's only the ignorance that covers over this knowledge of his eternality and his bliss. And he desires certain things. He's desiring, right? Everyone has desires. The living entity has desires. But those desires are misdirected. The desires are towards something that we think will make us happy in the material world. Sense gratification. Right? And so the Lord actually makes arrangements for fulfilling the desires, because the living entity doesn't have that Shakti. The living entity only has desire. And after that, it's like the Lord did everything. But you can't blame the Lord, because it's our desire, right? He's fulfilling that desire. Just like you have a father. So the father, he can lift the 40 kilos of rice, the rice bag, right? He can lift it. And the child sees, oh, The father is lifting the egg mound, right? Mound of the rice bag. So I'll also lift it. The child has no capacity to lift a whole 100 kilos of the rice, right? But he tries. And when he tries, the father stands behind him and lifts the rice bag. So the child, due to ignorance, is thinking, oh, I lifted the rice bag. But who lifted the rice bag? Huh? Same way, the living entities here in this material world, and he's thinking, I'll enjoy in so many ways, right? I'll, manipulate the material energy in such a way that I'll enjoy, right? I'll become software engineer, and I'll know, C plus and this plus and that plus, right? And I will earn by that, and I'll enjoy. Right? This is foolishness. Why foolishness? Because one's happiness that doesn't depend upon one's capacity to earn. Of course, we all need something for existence, but the happiness is there, according to Srimad Bhagavatam, already fixed by our previous karmas, Purva Janma. We did so many pious things, and therefore in this life we'll have some happiness. It's a fixed quota. And we did so many impious things in our last life, and unhappiness will also come. So Prahlad Maharaj says that just like people don't look for unhappiness, they don't look. Nobody goes, in Bombay looking for cancer. Nobody looking for cancer. But cancer comes. Why? By our previous karmas. In the same way, there's a fixed amount of happiness also, and that also comes. So therefore here, in this verse, we understand from Krishna that he's not arranging that. That is happening by our desire. We're desiring so many things. Now what Srila Prabhupada mentions is that when the living entity tries to attain Krishna, then Krishna interferes to help him desire the right thing, right? Just like Queen Kunti prays, that if the Lord favors someone, then the Lord takes everything away from that devotee. Why? If one may think that the devotees are favored by the Lord, so they should get all the opulences. And generally they do. Just like we see the demigods, they're devotees. And they have so many opulences. Lord Indra, Chandra, Vayu, Vivishvan. They're very powerful. They have so much opulence. But the real favor of the Lord is when the Lord takes everything away from the devotee. Because then the devotee is solely dependent on the Lord instead of anything else. And why does the devotee want to be dependent on the Lord? Because the Lord takes care. Just like in a family, there may be so many children. Let's say that someone has 3 children, right? And the youngest one is more attention. Everyone gives more attention to the youngest. Wo bache hai, lala aise karo, wo hai ye. Right? Why? Why? Because the small child is completely dependent for eating and going to the bathroom, everything. Child is dependent. So the child gets more attention. In the same way, when a devotee is completely dependent on the Supreme Lord, the Lord pays him attention. So therefore, when the Lord actually favors a devotee, that he takes everything away from the devotee, so that there's only the Lord to depend on. Srila Prabhupada, in his life story, we read from Lilamrita, that one astrologer told him in his hand that he'll have a very big business. In fact, Srila Prabhupada was in the business, in the pharmaceutical business. Where at? In Allahabad. Now they call it Prayag, right? But it used to be Allahabad, right? So he had Prayag pharmacy there. And he was selling different days, liniments, and different things, right? No, but his astrologer told him that will become a very big business. But what happened? Sarvanast. So sometimes the Lord makes a situation where the devotee is bound to be dependent on him, bound to fulfill the desire of the Lord. Srila Prabhupada's idea was that he'll earn sufficiently so that he can use that money to spread Krishna consciousness. And actually, in fact, he was given the mission by Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, his Guru Maharaj, to spread this Krishna consciousness in the English language. And he started a magazine called Back to Godhead in the year 1944. So whatever he was earning, he was publishing that magazine. But even after his business failed, still he was trying to push on that magazine to follow the order of his spiritual master. And then one day, someone told him that a magazine, people read it one time and set it aside. But if you have a hardbound book, then it can be read many times. So Srila Prabhupada began translating Srimad Bhagavatam. And he finished the first canto. And then he went to America. And therefore we're sitting here right now hearing Bhagavad Gita in Shri Shri Radha Rasbihari Mandir. Shri Shri Radha Rasbihari Ki. So the Lord, He has His plan, Prabhupada said. We have our plan. The completely surrendered devotee, he's only interested in what the Lord's plan is, not his own plan. But here in this verse, Krishna is speaking specifically about the bewildered, conditioned souls, and they make their own situation by their desire. They want so many things for sense gratification, and they work very hard, night and day. We can see in Bombay, people go to the city in the train, right? Now the trains are open, right? They pack into the train, and then they get down from the train and get in a bus line, and then go to the office and work hard all day, and then back in the bus, then back in the train, then take another rickshaw to their house. And, for all of that, what is their reward? Right? They have to listen to the crying children, or whatever. Padam padam yad vipadam natesha. So, and if something goes wrong, child gets hurt or something, then they say, oh, why did God do that? Why did God give me this trouble? No, God didn't give you. Desired to be in the material world and to work hard and perform fruitive activities. And this is the result of your desire. You can't blame the Lord. One time I was out on book distribution in America. We used to go on the parking lots. You know, they have these big shops, like they used to call it Kmart and Walmart. And inside is everything, and they have a huge parking lot with hundreds of cars. So people are going and coming. So we used to be on the parking lot, and we say, "Excuse me, sir," and give them a book and preach to them, trying. So one lady, I was giving a book, and she said, "Is this about God?" No, I don't want it. I don't believe in God. I said, "Why not?" She said, "If there was a God, then my son would not have been born crippled. But because my son is crippled, therefore there's no God." So you don't believe in God. Right? So they want to blame God for their situation. Right? If there's a God, everything should be perfect for me. But this is all due to their ajnana, avritam, covered over by ajnana. Knowledge is not there. Therefore, Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Tadvidhi pranipatena priprasnena sevaya upadekshanti te jnanam jnaninas tattva darshan. We have to get knowledge from one who is tattva darshan, who has seen the truth. You have to go to the devotees of the Lord who can understand Bhagavad Gita. Who can understand Bhagavad Gita? Bhaktosi me sakacheti. My devotee can understand. Krishna said to Arjuna, you can understand this knowledge because you're devotee. You're my devotee. That's the prerequisite to understand Bhagavad Gita. People can go on speculating about Bhagavad Gita. So many different commentaries are there by persons who have no idea what is Bhagavad Gita because they're not devotees. One very famous person, he gave his commentary on Gita. Manmana bhavamad bhakto. Krishna says, engage your mind in thinking of me, Mom, me. Clear, right? And what does he say? No. Engage your mind not to think of Krishna. Right? Oh, they want to always minus Krishna. No, not Krishna. You think of the unborn that is within all of us. Hare? What is this unborn in all of us? Some vague thing. Some misinterpretation. It's very clear. Manmana bhavavad bhakto. Engage your mind in thinking of me, Krishna says. But they say, no, not Krishna. They are all demons. They're translating and they're commenting on Bhagavad Gita, but they're demoniac. They're trying to use the words of Krishna to make their own philosophy. If you want to make your own philosophy, make your own philosophy. Why you're using Krishna's words to make your philosophy? You should, if you're commenting on Bhagavad Gita, you should say what Krishna's idea, not your idea. What is the value of your idea? Conditioned soul. We make mistakes, imperfect senses, cheating propensity, subject to illusion. We have to know what Krishna's idea, and who can understand Krishna's idea? The devotee of Krishna. We have to hear Bhagavad Gita from the devotee of the Lord, and then we can come out of our bewilderment. Our knowledge can be uncovered. Just like if you take a piece of gold from the gold mine, right? It may be covered by layers and layers of mud. So you have to purify it. Get off separate all the unwanted things so you can have the pure gold. Right? Same way, our knowledge has become covered over by so many different upadis, false identifications, false ideas. The number one false idea is what? That I can enjoy this body. Right? Number one false idea. So in order to break out of this, we require knowledge, jnanam, real knowledge, spiritual knowledge. And that can only come to us from the Supreme Lord via His devotees. The devotees can understand, and they can explain to us. By their association, we can do some seva, and we can ask relevant questions, and therefore we can clear off our ignorance. This human form of life is a very rare opportunity. So many different bodies we've had before. In so many lifetimes. We had a lifetime as a tree. We had a lifetime as an animal. We had a lifetime as a, so many different yoni. Now human being, after so many lifetimes, we've come to the life of having a human body. So it's very sudurlabham, it's very rare. But it's very unfortunate that even after coming to the human form of life, we don't use this body for the higher purpose. Higher purpose, Atma Tattva. Understanding the real self. Simply using the body for continuing the misconception is a waste of this human form of life. So therefore, we hear from the exalted devotees of the Lord, like Srila Prabhupada, then he encourages us to study these books, read these books, try to understand the message of Krishna, so that we'll use this human form of life for the best purpose, which is that at the end of this life, we don't have to take birth again in this material world. Hare Krishna. Are there any questions? One important point here, Prabhupada says, therefore, the embodied soul, by his immemorial desire to avoid Krishna consciousness, causes his own bewilderment. We offer someone, please chant Hare Krishna. No. If they see the Sankirtan party coming, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, they go the other way. Right? How to avoid Krishna. How to avoid the holy name. Right? So what can be done? Right? They only increase their own bewilderment. They say, there's a saying, it's folly to be wise where ignorance is bliss. Right? But where is their bliss? They have no bliss, only suffering. Sitting in front of the television set, what do they call it, the couch potato, watching the TV, in some, what do they call that? Serials, right? Serials. In America, they call it soap operas. Soap operas. The housewife is there, and she's fighting with her mother-in-law. There's always a mother-in-law, right? Wasting time. Simply wasting time. So, yes, question?
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much, Prabhuji, for nicely explaining the different themes of this particular purport. So I have a query regarding this avidya and knowledge. We see from our childhood, we go to schools and gain knowledge, and nowadays doctors, engineers and PhDs, they are very knowledgeable. And here the point comes, because of the avidya or ignorance, they are bewildered condition. And later when they get the knowledge, then this bewildered condition can be removed from them and they can be happy. So here my point comes, So how the knowledge which we gain from outside, and here the point mentioned, real knowledge. So by knowing the real knowledge, we can free from this avidya or ignorance. So can you tell what is the avidya and what is the real knowledge? By knowing this, which we can be free from this bewildered condition.
By real knowledge will come out from the avidya. And what is the avidya? The avidya is that I am this body. I am the enjoyer. I can be happy by trying to enjoy this body. This is the avidya. Now, you may become a doctor, scientist, PhD. You may have so many knowledge, but that knowledge will not bring you out from the avidya of thinking I'm this body. In fact, what it does is it increases the burden of ignorance. I work very studiously. I become a doctor, very good. But one's ahankar is increased. Oh, I'm a doctor. So that one has to understand what is material knowledge and what is spiritual knowledge. Atma Gyan, Atma Tattva. This is different from the mundane knowledge of this material world. The mundane knowledge of this material world is always changing. Always changing. What they study in the university is badli rehte hain. What they knew 50 years ago, what they studied, now has changed. Right? But Krishna's knowledge is eternal, everlasting. It's true for everyone. Dehi nosmin yatha dehe komaram yovanam jara. First you have a baby body, then a young man's body, then an old man's body, then you change bodies. That's true for everyone. Right? Whether you're a Muslim or Christian or Hindu, doesn't matter. Everyone had a baby body, then a child's body, then a young man's body. Right? It's not that Christians don't have a baby body. Huh? They have. Everyone. So it's true for everyone. And it was true 5,000 years ago when Krishna spoke it to Arjuna on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. And 5,000 years from now it will still be true. Right? This is eternal knowledge. And this knowledge, when received from the proper source, can destroy our ignorance. Right? You kill the avidya with the sword of knowledge, the sharp sword of knowledge. That's the difference. So people are working very hard for material knowledge. Why? For sense gratification. There's no difference whether one is a doctor or telawala. Same thing. Again, mrityu, janma. What is the benefit? One may be telawala, but if he chants Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram. Then he's better situated than the doctor who's in avidya. Right? That's the difference. Okay? Any other question? Backside.
Thank you. Hare Krishna, sir. My question is really rhetorical, but I really had this question since a very long time, so I thought of asking it today. My question is, why didn't Sri Sanjaya get the opportunity to write the Bhagavad Gita? Because he was the one who narrated the entire scenario to the king. So why wasn't he given the opportunity to write the Bhagavad Gita?
Sanjaya was simply repeating what he heard. Sanjaya, because Dhritarashtra was blind, he couldn't participate in the battle. He's a blind man.
Yeah.
But Sanjaya, by the mercy of his guru, Vyasadeva, he had the power of transcendental television. He could see, even though he was in the palace of Dhritarashtra, he could see everything that was going on in the battle. So he related it to who? Dhritarashtra. Right? So he didn't write Gita. He told it to Dhritarashtra. Who wrote? Who put it down? The message of Gita is passed down from the guru to disciple. But as Kali Yuga advanced, people's memories became weak. Now people can't even remember what they did same time today, what they did yesterday. It'll be difficult. So Srila Vyasadeva, he wrote everything down so that we can take advantage of it. It's Vyasadeva who wrote it. Sanjaya's part was there because he saw with transcendental vision that he received by the mercy of Vyasadeva to explain everything to Dhritarashtra.
So originally who has written the Bhagavad Gita, right? The very original.
And nobody wrote as such, nobody concocted Bhagavad Gita. It's the words of Krishna. It's Krishna's words. Sanjaya heard them, Srila Vyasadeva wrote them down. But it's the message of Krishna. The problem is that people take the words of Krishna and they put their own mad interpretation. Why you should interpret? If something's not clear, it requires interpretation. But if it's clear, why you're interpreting? Take the message of Krishna as it is. Don't try to change it. And understand it as Krishna meant it to be understood. Therefore, this is Bhagavad Gita as it is. You have this?
Yes.
Yes. So as it is. No mad interpretation. What Krishna meant, it's there in the message in this Bhagavad Gita.
Thank you.
And therefore, although in America there are many translations of Bhagavad Gita for hundreds of years, but not single person became a devotee of Krishna. When this translation of Bhagavad Gita came by Amara Guru Maharaj, Srila Prabhupada, thousands of people became devotees of Krishna all over the world. Right? So that just goes to show the power is there, but the power is only there when it is purely presented, without change, without any false interpretation. And then it'll be effective in our lives. We can read Bhagavad Gita, understand from a pure devotee, and there will be a change in our lives. Our lives will change. We need that change in the life. Okay? Thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki, Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki, Nitai Go Premanande.